Io appunto sono Massimo Mensi, sono colui che si è occupato.
My name is Massimo Mensi, and I dealt, among other things, with this tool that was a questionnaire given to privileged witnesses. Unlike the questionnaire Volker is going to talk to you about, that follows a typical quantitative research pattern, this was an interview that has the objective of being a qualitative survey. It was an open question interview that was administered to different people who had something to do with the world of industrial relations and with the trade unions. Those who were national trade union leaders or engaged in European and international federations, and those who had played the role of expert of academia. And this was a heterogeneous public, but there was a convergence towards the same common thread, towards one or more common elements within common topics. The value added was incredibly high. As you can understand, everybody started from different observation points, but everybody shared the same arena of problems and proposals for solutions. The questionnaire consisted of 8 questions. The first one was a biographical question with reference to the various subjects that were touched upon. And then there was a question about the approach with the world of multinational companies, and specifically the most significant experiences with particular reference to the multi-sector activity of which MuMMIA has dealt with. And there was a viewpoint that emerged that was preponderant: the owners, the management, the enterprise, when they negotiate and when they bargain with the trade unions, they're there and they are one. We are many. We're nice, we're beautiful, but we're different. And this is a weakness. So, if you allow me to label this, there is the syndrome from trade union nationalism, whereas it should be dealt with within a European framework. The question about the critical element, the critical issues in this framework, among there's the information asymmetries between the management and trade unions, the low trade unionism, the lack of information structures, lack of motivation on the part of the workers, the lack of experts, or the scarce involvement by the European or global trade unions. All the witnesses shared this long list, and in the main hits was the language barrier, not with reference to the relations within the negotiations, but rather like the element that enables you to keep in touch with your colleagues besides the bargaining within the trade unions. The outside witness, namely Gesualdi, that greeted us earlier, highlights something that can be shared more or less, namely to the trade union noticing that there is a lack of awareness. So society is changing very quickly. Within the trade union, are like a mummy, like the mummy in the logo. You are moving very slow, and you should put in place some alliances, not only within the trade union world, but go beyond that and move towards those who use the label of civil society. So you have to create new alliances besides just the trade union perimeter. Next questions: what are the elements for success? Are there any good practices? There was almost univocal, homogeneous answer. The good practices are there. There are few, but there actually are good practices. Is it possible to generalize them? The answer is not clear. These good practices are possible with all the factors that Gabriele was talking to you about and that Gianluca mentioned too. If there is a pre-existing trade unionism and already some tested forms of transnational trade union coordination, these come true. These are the preconditions that make it emerge. Next question. With reference to these experiences, were there some infirmities or critical issues with reference to bargaining? And here there's an interesting reflection that comes up. And we talked about it at the steering committee level, which is two different views of EWCs. One vision that takes it back to the rationale of the directive, so a body for consultation and information. And then there is a second one emerging, namely a bargaining player, which is not necessarily considered stricto sensu. Bargaining can be expanded to fields that are, so to speak, soft ones, namely training. Training that is not just carried out for the need to train from a language viewpoint the members of the EWC, but a transnational type of training. So not only coming from one country to the benefit of others, but practiced and planned in common, and training as an identity element to build one's own identity, the EWC's own identity. Here too, communication is important, which is a key element in processes, and the request to share or to define guidelines. Information should be transparent and immediate, which is the most effective one because it takes out, so to speak, to the owners the manipulation of facts. So if there are some guidelines to comply with, everything's much simpler. Another question, the national and international trade union coordination, what role should they play? Are they important? There is a univocal answer, of course they are. And we can go back to the key words. The key words are always been our trade union alliance network, and the adjectives are intercategory, internationalization, Europeanization. If we want to use a slogan, the slogan was the European dimension to make our relationship network European. The next question was concerning the importance of training and vocational training. The unanimous response was yes, but let's take into consideration training within another viewpoint. So training as the building of an identity element which gives a strong definition of EWCs, which is transnational, thinking transnationally. The last question was devoted to the European trade union culture. There are various textbooks that talk about compared industrial relations in our world, and this term European trade union culture is recurrent. Is there such a thing or isn't there? And Gabriele was talking about it in his introduction. The European trade union culture is a goal to be achieved, and as it's a goal that hasn't been achieved yet, it's an aspiration, it's something tangible, but there's always something before. There's always a national context that prevails, and international policies are a half step backwards. But we need to have the awareness that the new frontiers of trade unions, of the carrying out of our activities, the national one and the European one. So these questions are here as stimuli, and especially for young people, and EWCs as an element to strengthen the element of solidarity and the negotiation of transnational elements to found common elements that defeat differences. It's up to us to transform these questions into certainties and proposals for exercising pragmatically our own trade union activities as new trade unions. Thank you.